Alrighty, so we are moving on. This is the third part of Chapter 6, pages 196 to 204, and we are going to start about the beginnings of our country. Alright, so during 1776, after we write actually even before and after we write the Declaration of Independence, many of the states are going to write their own constitutions. The Second Continental Congress will encourage them to do so. A lot of the states are going to are wanting to reject anything that was similar to monarchy, or anything that puts too much power in the hands of the wealthy. So if you were to go back and read a lot of these are going to have bills of rights included in them. They will have just rights and things like that. They will be very specific about what goes on in those states or what will go on in those states. 1776, all tax-paying men in Pennsylvania were granted the right to vote and hold office. The Pennsylvania Constitution creates a unicameral or one-house legislature with complete power. So there's no governor. There's elementary education is provided, and no imprisonment for debt. So if you were in debt, you used to have to go to jail. Imagine if we had that today. Like half the world would be in jail, in debtor's prison. Many patriots are going to criticize the new government without a governor. But like I said, people are trying to get as far away from a monarchy as possible. And that is one of the things that they think is a good idea, is not to have one individual person as a leader. 1776, John Adams, and that is John Adams right there in the picture. He's going to publish Thoughts on Government, and he's going to encourage a mixed government with shared powers. And he's going to suggest an executive, a judicial, and a legislative branch of the government. John Adams is a conservative, and they're going to counter Pennsylvania's constitution with arguments for mixed government. So in addition to John Adams and his book, other people are going to agree with that. New York and South Carolina, their constitutions instituted property qualifications for voting and holding office. And things like that were in place in a lot of places. All right, women, after the war, they want an end to the restrictive customs laws. Some are going to advocate property rights for women, because remember, women couldn't own property. Women, though, are going to be largely ignored, except in New Jersey. During the war and during the writing of the Declaration of Independence, Abigail Adams, who was John Adams' wife, she writes a famous letter where she encourages him to remember the ladies. And I actually have an excerpt printed in my classroom by the door above the light switch. So if you're ever interested in checking it out, it's a nice little quote. But even her request is ignored by Adams. Except in New Jersey. They are going to give women some rights. In the 1790s, Massachusetts is going to grant girls an equal right to education under the state constitution. So in this time period, the educators are men, and it is a male profession in the 1700s. It does not become more of a female profession until the 1800s, when they start educating women on a larger scale. All right, nearly 100,000 loyalists are going to leave after the war. Some aren't going to feel safe sticking around a bunch of patriots and whatnot. Most of them are going to lose large sums of money and or property. Some of them are going to look for compensation from the new government, but the new government is not going to give that out. Some states, the loyalist property was seized and auctioned to the highest bidder. In urban areas, Tories were replaced by patriot merchants, and Tories are going to be British people. Republican-minded entrepreneurs are going to replace traditional elites whose money had come from land ownership. The revolution is going to raise the Yemen's hopes of acquiring land in the West, requiring new incursions onto Native American land. So remember, after the French and Indian War, one of the provisions that the British government put into place is the Proclamation of 1763, which says that people can't move west of the Appalachian Mountains. This is out the window at this point, so people are going to be looking to moving westward. Southern slaveholders fight the revolution to secure property rights, and that includes property of their slaves. Protecting the property rights of whites prevents widespread emancipation of slaves. So that is going to be one thing, and that will be very controversial during the debates of the later on the Constitution. is allowing people to keep that property. All right, this is to certify. This is from New York, April of 1783. To whomever it may concern that the bearer hereof, and that says Cato. Oh, that's hard to read. I don't know what his name is, but it's the name of the slave. A Negro resorted to the British lines, or reported to the British lines in consequence of the proclamations of Sir William Howe and Sir Henry Clinton, late commanders-in-chief in America, and that the said Negro has hereby His Excellency Sir Guy Carleton's permission to go to Nova Scotia or wherever else he may think proper. So they issued these to escaped slaves who had fought with the British during the Revolutionary War, and so sometimes they will get these things that will allow them to kind of leave. And so some of them will go to Nova Scotia and places like that. All right, so November of 1777. So remember, this is still while the war is going on. This is our initial government, the Articles of Confederation. So remember in the previous lecture I told you in 1781, we have a hard time because we can't tax and whatnot. This is the reason we can't. So they're going to provide for a loose union in which each state had one vote regardless of its size or population. It didn't matter their wealth. There's no chief executive. There's no judiciary. You only have Congress, and Congress is the one that holds the power, and it is a group of people. They can declare war. They can make treaties. They can adjudicate disputes between the states. They can borrow and print money, and they can ask the money for states for common defense. So they don't have the power to earn money. They don't have the power to tax. There's a lot of things that they can't do, and it was designed this way because we are fighting an oppressive monarch. And so this is what their initial thought is that we want to get as far away from the monarchy as possible. In 1780, the new central government is nearly bankrupt because they can't tax anybody. They don't have any way to make any money. The Bank of North America was established in Philadelphia as a private institution whose notes were meant to stabilize the economy. Congress wants to sell Western lands to raise revenue. That is one thing they can do, but that still requires votes and all that. The Northwest Ordinance in 1787 is going to create territories that would eventually become Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Part of the ordinance is that it's going to prohibit slavery in those states. They are going to earmark funds from land sales to establish schools. When the population reached 5,000 men, not people, men, the citizens could elect a territorial legislature. When the population reaches 60,000, the legislator could devise a Republican constitution and apply to join the Confederation. So basically, early inklings of how to join, you'll have something similar about how to join the United States when it becomes a union. All right. Eastern states, the ones where most of the war is fought, are going to suffer tremendously after the war. Shipping industry is in terrible problems. Their industry has been crippled. War debts are enormous. Creditors want the state governments to repay the loans quickly. The states don't want to tax the people and instead are going to authorize new paper money. So at this point, there's not one common currency. The states can create their own. They can print their own money, so they're going to just keep adding money to the supply, which is going to be a problem. The states are, in Massachusetts, the states are not going to enact debtor relief. Instead, they're going to impose these high taxes to pay off the wartime debts. Farmers are going to start protesting the tax rate and property seizures, because if you couldn't pay the taxes, then they would take your property. So you're going to have a group of people that are going to rebel, and this is going to be called Shays' Rebellion. So you'll have a couple of rebellions early on in our history. This will be one of the first ones. So Shays' Rebellion, led by Captain Daniel Shays, which is why it's called Shays' Rebellion. You have a mob of farmers that are going to close the Massachusetts courts by force, because the idea was if the courts are closed, they can't seize the property. All right. The rebellion is put down by force, so it does fail. But it really does start to make it clear that the new government, that things are going to be difficult, that this is not going to be an easy road that we're going to travel at this point. So even as we gain our independence, it seems like things will get easier, but things are going to get harder before they get easier, and you're going to have a lot of problems. This is the Northwest Territory that I just told you about. You can see where it's labeled there, and it's going to create those states. All right, so that is part 3, and I have one more section, so you have one more lovely lecture to listen to. It's going to be a short one. So I hope you have a good afternoon, morning, or evening. Talk to you in a bit. Bye.